This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be happy, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be happy. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Thank you so much, Christelle. That was terrific. Really appreciate that. And it is so good to be here practicing with friends. I mentioned before we started that some of us are regular members of this group, and some of us come and go as circumstances permit. I think it can be really useful as we start to actually lean into the support that being with a group. I'm looking around at the little icons as I talk. So leaning into the support that a group, being with a group, practicing with a group can offer us. We're here with people who are dedicating their time and intention to train this mind-heart so that we can meet the stuff of life more skillfully with interest, care, patience, balance, love. How good is that to be with a group of people coming together for this purpose? Certainly we're here looking after our own mind-heart, but we are also supporting each other as we do that. So thank you. Thank you for the support of your presence. When Marlene allocated me 4 weeks of this year's rains, I wondered, what might be suitable thing to explore. And many of us know that the Buddha's teachings have lots of lists. So the list of 4s that popped into my mind immediately were the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the 4 Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, joy for others, happiness, and equanimity, or the 4 Noble Truths. But we had, I think it was last year, Geeta. Was it last year you took us through the 4 Noble Truths? Or maybe the year before? Anyway, recently. So I thought, oh, which of the first 2 will I do? And then I thought, oh, to actually do any of, or particularly the 4 Noble, the 4 foundations of mindfulness, the Satipatthana Sutta, well, is quite in depth. There's a lot to it. So in the end, I've decided I'm going to loosely base the meditations on the 4 foundations of mindfulness, and the talks will probably be a little more general, but we'll see how it goes, because so far I've only prepared and thought about tonight's, so it'll be a work in progress. And tonight I thought I would start reflecting a little, kick us off by reflecting a little on the experience and learning from the retreat I did just recently, a month-long self-retreat up at Jhana Grove Retreat Centre. This is the 5th year in a row that I've been able to do that, and it's really fascinating and quite heartening actually to be able to reflect back and see how this mind-heart is developing along through the practice, through the retreats, through the teachings. So I thought I'd just reflect on some aspects of the retreat I've just done. In the lead up to going on a self-retreat where it's not possible to rely on the teacher to provide the input, I usually spend a bit of time beforehand thinking about what particular intention might be supportive to take with me on retreat. This year, the intention sort of developed through noticing that my capacity for metta, for loving kindness, and we chanted the Metta Sutta, the Buddha's words on loving kindness. Christelle chanted and we all chanted along, or some of us did. So my capacity for metta is still limited. When I sit down and meditate, I find that it's much easier to generate loving kindness for all, even the dog owners that don't put up their dog poo, even Donald Trump, even some people that I don't naturally feel an affinity to. But when I get into real life, you know, it's a little trickier at times to have kindness, friendliness as my response to some of the things, some of the people I see out there in real life. So I'm keen to strengthen that capacity, to open further, to be able to offer kindness to all. Just like the sun shines, offers its warmth to all without prejudice, without exception. So that's the intention. And I combined that intention with remembering a saying from the 3rd Chinese patriarch of Zen. Well, at least it's attributed to the 3rd Chinese patriarch of Zen, Zheng Zan. And this saying is, the great way or the path is not difficult for those who have no preferences. The path is not difficult for those who have no preferences. And we might unpack that a little more if that feels useful. And like all of us unenlightened beings, I have lots of preferences. And those preferences at times are obstacles to being able to respond with metta, with kindness, with friendliness. And you might even bump into preferences during tonight's session, during tonight's meditation, during tonight's talk. After all, other people rarely behave in ways that consistently fulfill our preferences. You might have noticed. And in many ways, it's actually really helpful to come up against our preferences not being met, because that's the place for practice. That's the place where we have the possibility of growing a more skillful set of responses. Now, we don't always take up that opportunity. Sometimes we just hang out in aversion, in judgment, in frustration, in get me out of here. And so knowing that, it was useful to take that intention with me on retreat. I was going to try and bring an attitude to situations when my preferences weren't being met, to see that opportunity as a valuable and even vital experience to be able to cultivate a broader range of responses. I wanted to be able to welcome these experiences that I would otherwise usually just have aversive reactions to. Observe, investigate, understand, and imagine other ways to respond. We can't soften our preferences, become less attached to them without the experience of being with what we don't want. So we can transform our perception of unwanted experiences and see them as gold, and that already is a useful recalibration of how we meet the various experiences of life. I thought I'd also, just for those of you who have never been to Jhana Grove Retreat Centre, just show you a few photos, because it can be nice. It can be nice to have a sense of where it is that Ajahn Brahm and the monks come and offer retreats, and part of this whole BSWA complex. So I'm going to put up a couple of photos. Kimberly, I can still see your face. Could you nod if you can see a photo of a, yeah, okay, good. It means I'm doing the right thing. Thank you. So that is the Jhana Grove Retreat Centre, which is part of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia. And Bodhinyana Monastery, where Ajahn Brahm is the abbot, is just down the road, 1 kilometre or so. It's up in the hills out of Perth. And during the 3 months rains period, Jhana Grove Retreat Centre is made available for self-retreat, for experienced practitioners with explicit permission of Ajahn Brahm, and if you've sat a 9-day retreat with him. There was about 36 of us at the retreat centre, and interestingly, most of them are from overseas. There were people from Singapore, Malaysia, Taiwan, Europe. There was a couple of people from Poland, US. So more than half of the people were from overseas. and most of them are there also for the full 3 months. I was a part-timer as I was only up there for 1 month. While we're on retreat, we're invited to go to the monastery 1 kilometre down the road. Once a week, Ajahn Brahm comes to the retreat centre and we have an opportunity for group interviews where we can talk about how our meditation's going. During the retreat, we're supposed to be on noble silence and 8 precepts, and different people interpret those in different ways. Now, I love noble silence, so you might already get a hint as to what some of my experiences were where I didn't get my preferences met. Not everybody loves noble silence as much as I do, I've noticed. Now, that's the retreat centre. And this is just a photo from another time. It's not from when I was there this time. It's probably a retreat where you can see Ajahn Brahm on the left, Buddha statue on the right, nuns on the right. Now, the reason I show you that one, because it looks nice and formal, and during Rain's retreat, it becomes a little less formal. And so this was taken, I took while I was up there on Rain's retreat, and you can see the teddies. You can see the teddies in the front on the left and also in the corner in the right-hand side. There are lots of teddies in the meditation hall. You might be aware that Ajahn Brahm often will use a teddy image when he's teaching metta, when he's leading a loving kindness meditation. So people then, in their generosity, give teddies. So the retreat centres, well, the meditation hall is full of teddies. Now, this is the meditation hall from the back, and it looks to me a little bit more like a children's slumber party, but it was very cold while we were up there. So we needed lots of rugs, and obviously I took this when nobody was in. But you can see some teddies dotted around. People take a teddy and put it on their chair. And this is my last photo. I particularly wanted to show you that one because the teddy in the middle was one that really was very heartwarming for me, because it was an elderly Chinese gentleman who sat and meditated in that spot. And just to see him sitting there, arms around the teddy as he meditated, was such a heartwarming image for me. Now, showing you those images was not simply like, you know, kids do at primary school, show and tell, but also to offer a sense of the orientation of gentleness, kindness, softness, care that the presence of a teddy bear in the meditation hall might evoke for you, even now. But of course, I know that we're all different. We're all conditioned differently. So for some people, seeing a teddy in the meditation hall might generate something very different. It might in fact be annoyance, judgment, rejection, all sorts of things. Not a problem. We have all been conditioned differently. And one of the qualities that we are developing here together is mindfulness. And that includes awareness of the reactions that we have to any experience. So if judgment arises, it's a welcome opportunity to see that reaction, to hold judgment, investigate potentially. Sometimes our judgments are insightful and useful. Sometimes our judgments are simply conditioned habits, patterns of thinking that might not serve us any longer. So it's well worth standing back observing. And mindfulness is the key component of the mind that enables us to do that. Stand back from a reaction, and then potentially ask wisdom what might be most useful. Call on wisdom to support a more skillful response if that's appropriate. I put up a photo of the Buddha statue that's in the meditation hall. And very early on in the retreat, I spent quite a bit of time sitting in the meditation hall, looking at the Buddha statue and connecting that image as I was looking at it with the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness, compassion, joy at other people's success, and equanimity. One of the things I did in order to strengthen that connection with the Buddha image and those qualities was to sing a chant that I learnt from a Buddhist teacher, Arya Bauman, and I know some of you know Arya and have sat retreats with her at Jhana Grove, which is just a little chant of the four in Pali. It goes something like, Metta Karuna Mudita Upekkha, Metta Karuna Mudita Upekkha. I sang that many, many, many times, looking at the statue and generating the feeling, the internal feeling of kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. And that was very intentional because I knew that I would be spending a lot of time in the meditation hall. And it felt very useful to connect those qualities, kindness, compassion, joy, equanimity, with an image that I would be seeing many, many times a day. And it was a really useful practice. It meant that I was being prompted regularly to remember, to pause in what might be going on in the mind and to come back to those qualities. That visual reminder was very useful. And you might be able to see the Buddha statue behind me. Since I've come home from retreat, I've also been doing the same thing with the statue here. There might be something in your space that connects you to those qualities that are very skillful, that might be worth spending some time just so that we get that visual reminder. We look at it and we open into those really important heart feelings. That practice reminded me of a practice I once did where I chose a stranger I saw regularly and bombed him with loving kindness every time I saw him. I never spoke to him. I have never spoken to him, but I saw him regularly. And it was a man that lived in my street, and he would walk down the hill in front of the window. I could see him through the window where I sat at my desk every morning to the bus. So daily, I could offer him loving kindness. I could offer him friendliness. And it was a fantastic practice. As I practiced over the days and weeks, it developed so that I only needed to get a glimpse of him to be filled with loving kindness. We're not such complicated things in some ways, humans. We can establish habits, we can establish practices. We see that, then we have this reaction. So it was an intentional way of through a visual stimulus, connecting with a mind-heart practice or sense quality that was important. I think I'll give a little bit of an introduction to the meditation that I'm going to invite us into tonight. And as I said, the meditations over the next 4 weeks will be connected to the Satipatthana Sutta. That's the discourse of the Buddha on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. As we are moving into the meditation part of tonight, and I will say a few more words about it to orient us, but it might be useful for those of us who were here when in the talk before we went into rains. You might remember Venerable Sunyo gave that last talk, and his words as he was going into the 3-month rains retreat was to not put too much pressure on himself. And instead, he told us that he was taking into rains the idea of being a good enough meditator. Being a good enough meditator. Those words were really useful for me on retreat. It's far too easy for many of us to fall into striving and judging, which can get in the way of our meditation. So tonight we are focusing on the first foundation of mindfulness, which is the body. Just to let you know or remind you, second foundation of mindfulness is feeling tone. Third foundation is mental states, and the fourth foundation is dharmas. And we'll look at those over the next 3 weeks. But that first foundation, which tonight's meditation is sort of oriented towards, is body. And in the Satipatthana Sutta, there are a number of different contemplations connected to the body, and we will do some of them. There are various reasons for contemplating the body, and I'm relying primarily here on what Bhikkhu Analayo has written in his book Satipatthana Meditation, a Practice Guide. He says that the task in this first foundation of mindfulness is not so much using the body to cultivate mindfulness, but rather using the contemplation to cultivate a lessening of attachment to the body. Interesting. So it's a wisdom practice where we're cultivating a way of relating to this body without the usual, oh, I like this bit, I don't like that bit, without the usual clinging and aversion. And seeing it as made up of different parts. See that it's a conditioned phenomenon. It's not self-sustaining in its own, it doesn't have an essence that sustains itself. I'm going to include sort of 4 different orientations connected to the body in the practice. The first is the awareness that we're invited to have of our bodily posture. We're invited to know our posture. And as I say that, I'm guessing that for many of us, our attention has really come into the body, and we have a much stronger connection to what the posture of the body is right now. To know I am sitting, or if we're standing, I am standing. Or if we're lying down, I'm lying down. If we're going, coming, we know that that's what we're doing. So just having a real sense as we start, a felt sense. Know what the body's doing, the posture of the body. And the breath, also part of the body. The Satipatthana Sutta invites us to know whether we're breathing in long or short. To know that. And we know that through the felt sense in the body. As I'm talking now, whether your eyes are open or closed, it doesn't matter. We can know the breath. And of course, there are other qualities that the breath can have than long and short. Maybe it's and it might be, if it's comfortable for you now, if you haven't closed your eyes, this is an opportunity, if that feels like a way of supporting the attention to know the body. And I'm going to use my a version of Bhikkhu Analayo's version of the anatomical parts, which is part of the contemplations of the body in this sutta. In the sutta, there's, depending on the translation, depending on the version, there's 30, 31, 32 parts of the body that we identify and know. Bhikkhu Analayo has brought them together in 3 body scans, one of skin, one of flesh, one of bones. And I'll guide us through that. So if this doesn't feel like a practice that is right for you tonight, please feel free to follow what will be more supportive for yourself as I guide the rest of us through these 3 separate body scans of skin, flesh, and bones. Remembering as we do this that the intention is to relate to these parts of the body as just parts of a body, neither desirable nor horrible. Just in the sutta they talk about relating to them as we would to different grains in a bag of grain: oats, wheat, millet, rice. So to have no more emotional reaction to them, to our body, as we do to grains, different grains. We might start up at the head. So bringing your attention up into the head region. And you might be able to actually feel the skin, or you might not. It doesn't really matter. Just knowing that in the head region, the face, the back of the head, across the ears, there is skin. maybe feeling it, maybe knowing it. And letting the attention come down into the neck region, knowing that there's skin covering the neck. Coming into the shoulders, knowing, feeling the skin across the shoulders. And moving the attention down the arms, feeling the skin covering the arms, the elbows, the forearms, the hands. Knowing that there's skin covering the arms and the hands, the fingers, the palms. Bringing the attention back into the torso, the top of the torso, the front of the torso and the back of the torso, the sides of the torso, the hips, the bottom, all of that torso area covered in skin, knowing there's skin. And continuing down the legs, the upper legs, the knees, front and back, the lower legs, all covered in skin, down to the feet, also covered in skin at the top and the bottom. This whole body covered in skin. And then starting where we finished with the feet, we're going to bring our attention as best we can to the flesh of this body. In the feet, maybe sensing, and if there's no sensation of flesh, at least knowing there's flesh. Coming up the legs, the lower legs, flesh. Through the knees, into the upper legs, the thighs, flesh. Remembering as best we can to meet these parts of the body with balance, just flesh. Not good, not bad, just flesh. Coming up into the buttocks, flesh. Coming into the torso, the lower torso, the upper torso. Sensing or knowing there's flesh here too. From the fingertips, the palms of the hands, inside the hands, inside the arms, lower arms, upper arms, flesh. Up into the shoulders, sensing, knowing flesh. Coming up into the neck, aware that there's flesh here too. And coming up into the head area. Perhaps sensing, but definitely knowing that the head too has flesh. This whole body filled with flesh. And from the top of the body, from the top of the head, we'll do our third scan, and this time of bones. Starting with the skull. Maybe you can sense it. Maybe it's just knowing that there is bones in the head. Coming down the spinal column from the top. Pausing at the shoulders. Coming down the arms, knowing the bones. There are bones in the arms. Through the elbow, forearms, wrists, fingers, bones. Coming into the torso, we've got the shoulder blades at the back, the rib cage, going down the spine, the vertebrae, all the way down to the tailbone. Feeling the bones of the pelvis, the bones from the hip joints, the big bones of the thighs, the kneecaps, the bones of the knees, the bones of the lower leg, and all the little bones in the ankles and coming down into the feet, lots of little bones. Feeling the bones that make up this body, the skeleton that gives us structure. Has certain functions, as does the flesh and the skin. And all the different parts come together to form a functioning body. Setting aside for the moment all the perceptions of beauty or disgust and just seeing it as different parts of the body that come together to enable the whole system to work. For the next 10 to 15 minutes, we'll have silence, and you may choose to continue the contemplation of the body, the knowing of the posture, the knowing of the breath, or an alternative approach if that is preferable for you. But I'll be in silence for the next little bit. Another of the contemplations in terms of mindfulness of the body in this discourse that I've been talking about is a contemplation of the elements that make up the body. And traditionally, those elements were identified as earth, water, fire, and air. And cohesion within the body. But for some of us, a more modern reflection on the elements is useful. And I was checking out what the scientists say about the elements that make up this human body. And Dr. Ashley King is a planetary scientist and stardust expert. And he says that nearly all the elements in the human body were made in a star, formed in stars over the course of billions of years and multiple star lifetimes. And many of these elements have come through several supernovas. However, it's also possible that some of our hydrogen, and that makes up almost 10% of our bodies, and a tiny bit, and lithium, which is tiny, it's also possible that some of that originated from the Big Bang. So as you're contemplating this body, just for the last minute or two, maybe it's a bit of fun to know that some of the hydrogen and lithium in this body, it's possible it originated in the Big Bang. Welcome back, everybody. I'm not sure if my system is coming in and out a bit. Can you just nod if you can hear me, please? Okay, thanks, Marlene. That's working. I think it conked out a few times during the meditation, but that's for Bob to try and work out. Good luck, Bob. Welcome back, everybody. One of the things I mentioned prior to our meditation was the intention to strengthen a capacity for kindness, for friendliness, for love. And I find it very inspiring to imagine a heart mind so beautiful that in any situation, the only response it can have is to be one of the 4 Brahma Viharas: kindness, compassion, joy at another person's good fortune, or equanimity, balance. How good would it be to live with a mind-heart that responds to the experiences of life in one of those ways, and that's it? You might touch into that possibility as I say it. How would it feel? How would life be different? Ajahn Brahm sometimes encourages meditators to imagine into the mind of a Buddha, to meditate, imagining I have the mind of a Buddha, a mind free of greed, aversion, delusion, ignorance, a clear mind, a mind that responds to life's challenges with an open, caring, balanced heart. How good would that be? And I say that very aware of the experiences that are completely the opposite. And it's not to judge ourselves for when we have that. We all, being human beings, are going to be at times motivated by the opposite of those things. And it can be a great reminder to know, with work, with attention, with intention, we can strengthen the beautiful qualities of the mind and heart. Yeah. Now, that's what I was thinking of talking about to start with. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or comments or reflections from the practice or your practice. I'd love to hear any comments, any questions, any reflections, criticisms, things I should think about. All welcome. Feel free. Yeah, please, Gloria.
As usual. So thank you for your meditation. It's not exactly a question, but like at the end of the meditation, I imagine my room become a galaxy. and I become like stars. And I think that's kind of fun. And touching on your meditation and your sharing, I think one of the things I really admired about Ajahn Brahm is his ability to find good things. Like he always has an eye to discover the beautiful things in people, in situation, and I think, in the environment as well. And this is something I've been practicing recently. I still remember the first time, because I still remember the first time I told him that I became like a parent to my brother at a very young age. And then I think when I came to him to speak about that, I had that kind of like resentment in my heart. Like I just feel like it's unfair. Like why did I need to do that? But I still remember very like clearly that his first response was like, that is good. I'm like, what? And then I just like I don't think I completely understood that at that moment, but I think as my practice like progress, I kind of see that, because I think like because I love my brother so much, I don't know how to say it. It's not really like he's my child or such a thing, but like the day before, I just thinking about him. Like I love him so much. He's my only sibling in the world, and I'm like, I just want him to be well. Like I don't need him to be anything. I just want him to be well. And I think that kind of ability to love and take care of other people, like since a young age, or like have some people that I can, it's not really like rely on him, but like have someone that I can love with my heart as a family. And I kind of start to think that that is a beautiful thing, because I saw the beauty in him. And then I think to other people as well, I try my best this day to see that beautiful part. Like when my mind inclines towards like judging them or such way, I will always like try to think of one or two things that they may be beautiful, but yes, because I think Ajahn Brahm said about two bad bricks in the wall, and then he said that you just look at the like 98 good bricks. But I think what he saw, I don't know how to say, but I think what he saw is really there's no bad break actually. Like you think that this bad break is because your perception and your judgment, but everyone is like everyone can be good and everyone can be beautiful. And I kind of think that that is why the world he saw is so beautiful, while the world I saw sometimes is not really like that. And I think that is kind of, for me, that is kind of like a practice, but I think it's a happy path, kind of like, because you're like discovering the good thing in the world and the good thing of other people and yourself as well. And I think that's really important to see the beautiful things in yourself, even though you may not think that you are that good. Yes, thank you. That's all I want to share.
That was a lot, Gloria. That was really so many different elements of what you were saying, really useful things. And I mean, my first response was to hear you say how much you love your brother. I felt that. And there's something really beautiful about being in the presence of people who are being kind, who are loving. So I really understand, I think, at least in part, like you, what Ajahn Brahm was hinting at. That relationship has enabled something very beautiful in you to develop. That has enlivened that part of you. I mean, it would have developed some other way. We all have that capacity for love, but that was what was the context for that very beautiful heart quality that I felt as you talked about your brother. How good's that? And the point you were making about perception underscores the reality that we see, that our mind is conditioning our experience. We can have a crap day because we're perceiving it in that way. We can have a beautiful day the same day because we're perceiving it in that way. And you also anticipated what Ajahn Brahm has experienced recently in terms of the two bad bricks. He was up at Jhana Grove telling us that he had recently gone looking for the two bad bricks with, I don't know who it was, maybe Ajahn Brahmali, somebody. He'd gone looking for the two bad bricks and he can't find them anymore. He can't find them. He knows that they're somewhere in the men's ablution block, but he can't find them. His perception has changed such that instead of looking there, seeing their problem, it's now, as you say, he finds something beautiful. Yes, yes. And that's an ongoing practice for most of us, because not everything's straightforward and easy and comfortable, and it's a great practice. Yeah, lovely to hear the impact on your life.
Kathryn, I really appreciated that very much. I'm just so grateful to have these teachings and to have people who are even thinking in this way, because I was a psychologist for 20 something years. I knew that I wanted to be one from a very young age, because I always had one, and was very struck by this book in the beginning. And we were always in family therapy, which I liked very much. Anyway, what was my point? My point was about this. Hold on. Oh, I don't want to lose it. Sorry, my cat's here and he's hungry. It was, flesh. I have this skin, but I'm not this skin. I have this flesh, but I'm not this flesh. I have these bones, but I'm not these bones. I appreciate the opportunity to go through the whole body and learn not just that they're there, but just and what condition they're in, but to detach from it. Because in my work and in personal life too, where I worked with like 70 to 100 families a year for like 20 something years, there were a lot of boys who connected with their fathers the only way that they knew how to connect with their sons was to make fun of the girls at the dinner table, by, like, for example, making fun of how flat they were, or big thighs and huge feet. I'm talking about girls who hadn't even met puberty yet. And I understand the intention there was to connect with your sons, but it was not a wise way to do that. So anyway, I'm appreciating the fact that I'm on the path. I want to age well, which means not clinging to it. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to be with others who are doing it too. I mean, it's just amazing. That was very timely for me, because I'm obsessing a lot lately about the way that I look, because clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. He said he dodged the bullet because he never has to sleep with an old woman again. He'll marry someone who's 25 years younger than he. And the one on the right, his only concern after his stroke was not, oh, I can't do chores anymore. I can't pay bills. I can't work. I can't wipe my own ass. It was, I can't please her sexually. So I'm grateful to be with people. Let's just put it this way, we're far from the shallows now while I'm in this very practice. So thank you for that. And I really needed that.
Thank you, Martha. I think just reminding ourselves of the benefit of coming together and bringing clear seeing to this world that we live in. And you're so right. And we live in a world that is obsessed with the body, that judges people for their bodies, and the impact of that on our mental health, on the mental health of young girls and young boys and old girls and old boys, is significant. If we can support ourselves to have a relationship with the body which isn't so attached, it's a freeing. It's a liberation. Yeah. Thanks, Martha.
Thank you.
Any other reflections or... Yeah, Nikki. How you doing, Nikki? You're still, I know you're trying to get yourself off mute.
Unmute. It's worked. Hi, thank you, Kathryn. I'm doing okay. I think I'm on my next week I'll be on my third treatment of immunotherapy. So I'm doing okay, thank you. Considering.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I'm guessing
considering.
perception at times is a tricky one, to see the beautiful.
Yeah.
To see
it's like you were saying about the body, it has become somewhat a main focus, I think. Sometimes I don't mind that, sometimes it's annoying. But particularly meditation, like when we did what you guided us to do, what I'm noticing, it doesn't necessarily, I don't go to the lung necessarily where there's problems, but I'm feeling my breath. I felt my breath through the flesh. So what? And just before that, and another meditation, Ajahn Sadhguru was doing breath in certain parts of the body, feeling it in your body, the movement of breath. So what it's doing is helping. I'm hoping, and that I can then feel the lung, because I can feel it externally, but internally I find it hard to connect to things. So if I build my mindfulness up through what, like these meditations, I just want to have a better relationship with when there's a part of my body that's I perceive as going wrong. But it's not really, it's just causes and conditions. So I get a little bit, I notice I become somewhat resentful sometimes through, every time I speak about it, I start getting emotional, which I don't really want to, but it happens. So thank you. Every time I do one of these, it just helps me, like you say, it's like a mirror reflecting back my relationship with myself, really. So thank you. Yeah. Thanks for asking. Oh, you just moved. There you are.
You did too. We're all popping around, I
think.
think.
I don't like that.
Yeah.
Thank
Nikki,
you,
it's we have opportunities to practice, some of which are pretty straightforward and some of which are pretty pointy ends. And I think the situation you're going through is, a bit of a pointy end one. So I sometimes think of practicing meditating in certain contexts as being like having those levels of difficulty when you're doing a dive from the high rise of, the 30-meter board. And, when everything's going well, the level of difficulty is, 1. When life's gone upside down, the level of difficulty when we stop and try and meditate is very high. And so if we can have one full breath where we're completely present with it, how good's that? So being kind to ourselves when there's a lot calling our attention somewhere else, I think is really useful. And this isn't what you were talking about, but just a sense of actually feeling into our body. The innards of our body don't have a lot of nerve endings intentionally. Otherwise, we'd never do anything. We'd be just feeling the blood moving around. We'd be feeling the digestion. We'd be feeling the kidneys doing their bit. We'd be feeling all of that. And, we wouldn't ever bring up children or, pat the dog.
Distracted.
Exactly.
That helps, actually. I thought there was something wrong with me because I couldn't do that. I thought, maybe I'm so disconnected from myself. But I think it's more like sensation. The natural feeling. I can feel the compression. Certainly feel the liquid that's gone around there. So I've got this drain attached to my rib cage, so it's forever present. But it's getting easier. It's getting easier. At least it is definitely getting easier. It's like a new reality.
Yeah.
So it is getting easier. And I've decided, because there's no, when people say, oh, I don't know how long I'm going to live, I've decided it's for a couple of years, because it was just too much not knowing.
Good on you.
I've just decided, and when people talk to me, I say, no, I've got a cup, don't treat me as if I'm dead. That's the awful bit of this. Yeah. That people speak to me like they're at my funeral. It's bizarre. So I'm having to, it is exhausting. The process.
I really like that technique, Nikki, of having chosen, you know, I'm gonna stop this behavior. I've got at least 2 years to live.
It helps. It really has helped me. Like, come on. Yeah. Stop that.
Yeah. I'm alive. 2 more years. Let's live.
Yeah. Why not?
My little sister, when she went through chemo, used to say, I only have cancer on Thursdays. And that was the day she had to go into the hospital and get the treatment. And so her way of trying to manage it, and I'm sure there were times during the week when she thought about it as well, but she tried to like quarantine it. Okay, yep, I have cancer. I have to respond to it. I'm doing the treatment. I'm doing what I need, but I'm going to put sort of some time barriers around it. The other time is I've got the 2 years. Come on, let's live.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other reflections?
Oh, excuse me. I'll say one more thing. This is Martha. I thought I went back on you.
Yeah. Hey, Martha and Kat.
I really liked the tool. It's a tool. You choose a stranger. I choose a stranger, someone I see all the time, but never talk to, and send them metta. May you be happy. May you be well. May you be content. May you be at ease. I can see how that would generate metta, calm, kindness, compassion, positive feelings, and create positive states. I can see that is. I've never heard that before. Just to choose somebody and do that regularly, that is very, very helpful, and I hope I can do that.
Yeah, give it a whirl. Obviously, in the practicing of it as best we can when we are offering it, and you know, this isn't 100%, but as best we can, actually having that felt sense of it as well in ourselves. And then it feels like it was like Pavlov's dog. If you know all of those research. See person. Feeling arise, you know, that's straightforward. If you do it enough, it becomes very natural, automatic. Yeah. Well, I'm noticing the time. I might just. I think there was one thing I was going to say. I mentioned the practice I was doing of connecting the Buddha statue to the Brahma Viharas, kindness, compassion, mudita, joy for others, and equanimity. What I found really interesting, you know, that statue had never really done it for me before. I'd never found it particularly attractive. I hope Ajahn Brahm doesn't look at this video. He probably wouldn't mind. So the statue hadn't done it for me. But by spending so much time connecting with the Brahma Viharas, looking at the statue, the face of the statue changed over time. It suddenly became a lot friendlier, a lot more happy, a lot brighter. And it was an interesting change in my perception of the image. Obviously, the image hadn't changed over the weeks I was doing this, but my perception of it did. And like Gloria said, you know, we can change our perception. I'm just going to have a quick look at the chat to see if there's anything there that. Cat's waiting.
I have one question if you don't find another. Sorry.
Go, Martha. Yep, no worries.
In relation to the opportunity to look at oneself when one does not get their preferences. I've been thinking a lot lately about Buddha's having everything, which I think makes nothing satisfactory, versus then going to nothing and finding that having nothing is painful. That is the crux of the issue, I think. So can you relate that to, if you never have the opportunity to practice version, like, you know, they are always turning off people's cameras in meetings, if they're moving around too much in a meditation meeting because those people keep their eyes open, I think that could be an opportunity for those folks to learn, what does it feel to not get what I want?
Absolutely.
Or for me, when they turn off my camera to see what it feels like yet again to be rejected. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. And the question is, we need to, I think, expose ourselves to, well, the world exposes us to experiences that we don't want, not our preferences, all the time. We get that every day. I think the opportunity to expand is when we are at the edge of what we can comfortably accept. And so when it's too much, when our preferences is too, when we're not getting our preference in a way that is too extreme, we can be overwhelmed and unable, in fact, to support the expansion into, okay, yeah, I can be with this too. So for me, I think there's a balance between the external situation and the extent to which it is adverse and our inner capacity. And so practicing in situations which are not too extreme, I think builds up capacity. So in bigger and bigger situations, we're able to deal with what we don't want. Yeah, and so not everyone's going to be at a stage where they're able to take advantage of the opportunity to practice when something adverse comes up. But when we can grab it, it's certainly worth it. Well, good people, I don't want to go over because I know people have different commitments. It's been really lovely to be here with you tonight. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being part of this group. Thanks for us all having this opportunity to be together. Good night, good morning, good day.